The first benefit of gentle resonance technique is that it is a fast-track way to focus the mind. It doesn't have any tricks or complex methods. In fact, for the most part, you can customize it to your own comfort and style. As long as you develop the essential aspects as you learn them, then once you grasp it, you can do it while doing many other day-to-day tasks. It isn't a miracle cure, but it is usable in a modern-day setting where standard meditation techniques may not work so easily since they are designed for the solace of retreat. This is designed for urban living people who do not have time to meditate. Over time, it could well become a mainstay support to help you stay centered throughout your day. You can do this technique while you do other things, once you learn it, of course. One key issue for me is that I find it hard to stick to scheduled routines for very long. I don't see why I should either, it just isn't my style. So I needed something that I could use when I was doing other things. I needed it to become part of my day and ultimately my lifestyle. In that regard, gentle resonance is perfect. Driving is probably my favourite time, as no one can hear it, so I can get pretty loud, which I enjoy, but isn't all that necessary. In fact, subtle is often better. And I probably shouldn't admit it, as my body is my temple, but I've used the technique after a few glasses of port while smoking a cigar. Honestly, I know it sounds crazy and all wrong, but that's the nature of this. No one said you can't do it drunk while standing on your head juggling cats if you feel you want to. In fact, there's a story of a Taoist monk that spent most of his days drunk as he was learning the Tao of being drunk. The mind is still there to be observed and the technique still works. Though I wouldn't recommend it as the best way forward, the point is that it really doesn't matter much else what you're doing when you do the technique. Which is great because no one I know has ever stuck to a weekly meetup of anything. Eventually you stop going. With this technique, it's always there when you need it. A really important one is emotional release. We use this in working with grief, and it's a really powerful way of using the gentle resonance technique. It isn't the only way. There's a few different ways you can adjust the method based around what you're focusing on when you're doing the method. But emotional release is a really powerful one, and this is really the go-to one for me and how I use it every day. If, like me, you're someone who doesn't find talking stuff out to be an easy or go-to method for shifting emotional stress, then you may find that gentle resonance is the perfect answer. I'm someone who bottles stuff up. I think a lot of men do. I don't mean to. I don't even notice I'm doing it. I try not to, but it just seems to happen that way. Sometimes I can go days without realizing I'm functioning from an emotionally tense place. I put it down to hearing endless teachers tell me children should be seen and not heard. One of the first things I noticed when I started developing the gentle resonance technique was its capacity to release trapped emotion. The connection between the belly, where emotion enters in, and the throat, where expression exits out, became really clear as I worked the technique. There's a way to use the technique specifically to release emotion, and I teach this on this workshop. Think about the word emotion. It's literally energy in motion. When we get blocked, stressed, frustrated, that energy is stopped in us somewhere. It's stopped being emotion and it starts cooking and reacting inside us. Whenever anyone is stressing about anything, in any way, over any incident, however unforgivable, despicable, or outrageous, what is the thing that eventually happens for them to release them from the internal drama that they are experiencing? They talk it out, they express it, they vocalize it. They release their emotions through their throat. Gentle resonance allows us to do this in the safe comfort of a session, in our own time, and to revisit old emotions too if we want to, but without affecting anyone with our expression. This alone is probably the most powerful aspect of the technique. I can't emphasize it enough just how important it is for someone like me to have a technique that gets my trapped emotion out safely without involving anyone else. It was a life changer. Centering for solution. Gentle resonance, like other meditation forms, will get your mind out of the way. When the mind is out of the way, or in this case focused on the sound that you're making and the elements that we provide in the technique, then your subconscious mind, your quiet mind, your subtle mind can deliver pearls of wisdom to you. It's worth keeping a notepad with you so you can capture some of the ideas that come up. without having to break out from it. I sometimes need to solve a question or make a decision and allow for an hour to sit doing the technique only to hit upon the solution in the first few minutes. Sometimes a session will lead to an hour offload into a book of ideas, thoughts or inspirations. Sometimes nothing comes up and I just get focused and super chillaxed. It all really just depends, but it definitely allows some deeper and more subtle part of myself to be noticed, to speak and to have a voice. A silent voice, but it brings stuff up and I feel it arrive in my more conscious mind. Getting the monkey mind out of the way allows that to happen. Another benefit is health. We hear this all the time with many things, but there are some obvious supporting factors that make it a healthy way to pass the time. It's obvious stuff, but I mention it all anyway. For instance, breathing deeper in a focused manner will bring many benefits to the body. Focusing internally, slowing down and bringing our attention to our being is beneficial to us in itself. Many aspects of this kind of awareness are quite intangible, but those that do meditate regularly will always express how important it has been to their sense of well-being. Given the right environment and conditions, a body will heal itself. It's like the difference between sitting in an uncomfortable position with your mind going 10 to the dozen, or sitting in a calm posture, deep, slow breathing, and feeling centered in your body. Which would you think is likely to lead to a healthier sense of being? It's obvious stuff, but it can be such an important thing to recognize. Not to mention the power of resonance on the body. I'll talk about this in more detail a little further on. Combating night fears. It may be difficult to be able to make too much noise anywhere in your home at night, especially if you share a bed. But as someone who used to wake consistently at 3 a.m. and into depressive moods, apart from not eating late, I found gentle resonance to be one of the best techniques to prevent myself spending the next couple of hours in the small hours with my mind descending into a hellish process of scenario chasing solutions to whatever my concern was that day. Gentle resonance really helped me get over that night fear issue. There's another aspect to gentle resonance and meditation that I learned and I mentioned in my story previously about meditating on the tree and understanding the nature of existence. Reality is created by the observer. It's a massively bold statement to make, but one essential to the crux of what we offer at the Temple Space. And if you doubt that, feel free to talk to any quantum physics scientist who you can find that makes sense to you, and they'll support the theory that reality is created by the observer. And just some thoughts around that with gentle resonance technique. Sound vibrates at a frequency and is a wave of energy. All matter is made of vibrating waves of energy. Therefore, all matter can be affected by interfering frequencies. And so we can rightfully say that anything can be affected by sound at certain sympathetic frequencies, even solid objects. Add to that the power of intention and awareness, that quantum science will also concur actually directly affects the state of the reality we're observing. In a nutshell, using sound to vibrate ourselves and the world around us, along with our intention, can potentially change things in the world around us. But let's not get too grand on that or too magical and lost into our own navels with the idea. We have, I'm sure, as kids, all tried to stare at clouds and been unsuccessful in making them disappear. So it clearly isn't that easy to change reality. But luckily, in this case, the only relevant part of this curious fact is that we can change how we feel and focus with sound. And singing could be the best antidote to the mind and its tendency to nosedive when things get tough. We aren't all blessed with beautiful singing voices, but luckily for us, in this case, it doesn't actually matter. The worse your voice is actually better in gentle resonance. The weird and wonderful guttural sounds are fantastic for focusing the mind. Maybe there are some more scientific explanations for why this is the case, but I suggest it's in part because the social mind is so embarrassed by making weird noises that it's challenged, and also because sound is the ideal way to focus the mind. Odd sounds, guttural sounds, usually have some reverberation that is distracting and at dissonance with the mind's own vibration. This is something we want because then the mind lets go control. So let's call it singing, But what I'm really talking about is consistent noise that isn't talking. It isn't humming along to a radio tune, and it isn't singing hallelujah word for word. It's random, follows no pattern other than what you come up with in that moment. It's noises, ahs, gurus, yahs. It's at best if it doesn't make sense. We aren't trying to happy ourselves up with positive words. We aren't trying to express through lyrical storytelling. And we aren't trying to a mantra either. That's the mind's domain. We're using sound to release emotion from our depths, to carry us through and to keep the mind too busy to think. There are lots of reasons why it's better than TV as a salve and leads to much more positive solutions long term.